Bannerlord can be a brutally hard game. Often you're outnumbered and massive armies march against you. Well, in this new series, we're going to work together, friends. What I want you to do is send me your difficult situations that you're either currently encountering in Bannerlord in your campaign, or something that you've dealt with in the past where you're just unable to solve it. I will do my very best to handle these difficult situations. I will share the results on YouTube, provided they have some kind of educational value for people. We will take on these difficult challenges, do some battlefield analysis, and hopefully help you turn around a very, very difficult battle. So join me on this adventure. Please send me your difficult situations. Have a little patience. I don't know how many there are going to be, but I'm willing to take these challenges on for you fellas as we handle your disasters of war. Alright, this is it. We'll load this up here now that we've removed the mods, and it should work so that he still has achievements enabled. And unfortunately, we will be skipping our mods, but that's alright if that's what this fellow wants us to do for his save game. And indeed, the achievements are still active here. I'm aware there's mods for it, but let's go ahead and do an intro here since we're ready to go. Welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. Welcome back again to another episode of our Disasters of War series, where players out there collaborate with us and submit difficult situations, or in this case, a difficult campaign, and we do our best to fix the situation. Now, this guy is a guy actually wrote a post on Reddit, the Bannerlord subreddit, and said, I'm having a difficult time in my campaign. Am I cooked? So he wrote basically, so what now? And I'll put the email up on the screen for you to read, but I'm going to paraphrase it. It's a lengthy email. Essentially, he became independent, made his own kingdom, had Varcheg as his fief, and it sounded like at one point he had 3 or 4 castles. His goal was to destroy the Sturgeons and then eventually start to work on the Khazate. He called them the non-Mongols. But he said, unfortunately, he's had a very brutal war with the Sturgeons, and the Khazate declared war on him. He's been paying for peace with the Valandians. The Valandians look like they've expanded extensively in his map situation here. Yeah, ultimately, this guy said, I'm down to 1 city. We're exhausted from war. Help me out. And that's exactly what we're going to try to do here in this episode today. Now, I want to start off right off the bat by saying that we are playing with no mods. This guy is playing vanilla, and it looks like he's playing on the hardest difficulty, although a little bit of the settings here have been changed so that he suffers less death. So that means we're not going to have things like the RTS mod. So this might be a little bit slower than normal because I won't be able to speed things up. We don't have the better time mod, stuff like that. That said, we're going to engage in this campaign for a couple hours, right? This might be 2 episodes here as we try to help Daniel in this very difficult situation. He said, I don't mind being referred to as Beowulf. All right. So let's take a look at what's going on here. And very early on in these, what I've learned to do is basically create almost like the same thing a financial firm would do, and look at the total picture here and determine assets and liabilities. Essentially, financial terms, what's good about this situation and what is bad, right? This guy has a nice high-level character, right? I presume some of these other companions are pretty well set out, right? They're level 19, 20, etc. That's a good thing. He's got piles of money, right? Even though he's minus 5,000 a day, with sitting on 800K, you're like a retiree who's got a lot of spending habits. It's going to take a long time for us to run through that money. He's got endless influence, right? He can make policy changes. That might be something that we look at some point or other as well. It does look like he has some good policy changes, but there's some down here that we talk about regularly on the channel that are really good when it comes to loyalty for taking towns that might rebel. What else does he got? That's good going on. I would say his position on the map is a positive, right? Being in a position where you can go up here and take this peninsula, this Sturgeon Peninsula, is good. And that is my initial impulse here, because anytime you're in a map situation like this, and there's all kinds of carnage and juggernaut forces. Look at this Valandian force, right? The Valandians here, it reminds me a little bit of the Aserai campaign we did, where they took over 1/3 of the map. Amazingly, the Khazate also. In fact, it looks like the Khazate is a juggernaut in this campaign as well. So he's really in a tight pinch from that perspective, right? Because he has the two largest kingdoms kind of boring in on his east and west flank. Now, right now, he said he's paid them off. So he's paying 3,200 and 1,600. Not too bad, right? That's in fact where most of his expenses, the tribute payment on the bottom there, is a major part of that negative. That said, the math on that's simple, right? We have 100 days, more than 100 days to fix this. That shouldn't be a problem. Now, like I said, this to me is the most appealing, because if you could start to take these two locations, if you could start to sort of form your kingdom and shove yourself up into this little horn up here, you can let your enemies fight it out. The AI is very likely to attack each other. In fact, the Khazate and the Valandians are likely to go to war here if they're not already. And that is simply because the AI calculates everything from the size of an opponent to the urgency to where they are. I will be surprised in this couple episodes here. It might be 3. We'll see how long it takes. If the Khazate and the Valandians do not go to war at some point. That seems highly probable. Now, this guy, his army's beat up, right? He was mentioning that in the email. He basically said, look, my army's beat up. We're missing some key troops. We've lost a lot in open field battles against the Khazate. And I didn't ask him, but we're probably going to start to prioritize archers and ranged units in this campaign, at least early on. Maybe when he takes it back over, hopefully, after we've fixed things, we will shift back towards more of an army like he has right now. Though that said, like when you look at his army as of this moment, you would say it's just a mixed army, right? Ironically, he has Valandian banner knights and sharpshooters. I like that, right? Your sharpshooter is one of the best units in the game, but he doesn't have much besides that. And of course, he mentioned that in his email. Basically, he said his two sides, and what he means by it is Sturgia and him, his original kingdom and his own, are war exhausted, right? So that is a consideration. Now, right away, I like his positioning here also for the other reason that I like, that I want to mention here. He is between Batania and Sturgia, and these have some of the best units in the game as far as unit composition and army composition. I love ranged units, as guys on the channel know, and I also like javelins and tough infantry. Cavalry, not so much in Bannerlord, right? With the exception of Khan's Guards and Aserai Vanguard Ferris, most of the cavalry in Bannerlord is not great. So his location is actually good from that perspective. Now, I think priority number 1, besides destroying the Sturgeons here and starting to take their territory, is troops. This army is coming towards us. It's going to, well, okay, they are coming here to siege, but we have 400 defenders. Now, let's cover this real quick, too. Let's just take a peek. He said he did convince a clan to join him. So he's got, this looks like a Sturgeon clan that has joined him. He's got lots and lots of vassals here, and that's good, too. This clan, it'll be interesting to see how much we can use them. And at some point or other, we may give them some of these resources. Influence, gold. We'll talk about that if and when we get to that stage. Right now, when you only have one fief, though, I think priority number 1 is getting a big army. Right, we're going to make a couple parties here. He doesn't have any other parties that are with him. In other words, oh, actually, I beg your pardon. He does, but they're so small, we can't actually call them to our army. So let's see if we can find out where they are. I think that's one of them. One of the first things we want to do is start getting more troops and getting this army with us, because if we can get an army of 500, 600, 700, then we can start to fight the Sturgeons in the open field. Then we can start to siege some of their possessions, right? That's going to be numero uno. From the diplomatic side of things, we're just going to leave things exactly as they are. In fact, I would love it if it stayed like this for the next, 20 game days or so, right? You've got this juggernaut power. Look at this, is a hilarious looking graph here. 500 against 12,500. Yeah, we would like peace. And it's almost as extreme here, right? This guy has a little tiny kingdom strength against an absolutely juggernaut Valandian force. I love this shit, right? This is a great scenario for us. And hopefully we can solve this in a relatively expeditious period of time. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and give us, for the sake of just the episode and your guys' understanding of how long this is going to take, 1 year here. So by the end of winter 1102, hopefully we can right the ship here. Now, we already went in and gathered up some troops. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure there's plenty of food here in Varcheg, because we're going to leave. And I know that's counterintuitive to a lot of you fellas, right? This guy, he needs some horses. So Daniel has no money problems, at least not yet. So we're going to take every opportunity we can to pick up horses. We're going to take food and stuff like that. But we also want to make sure that we leave food here in the original garrison. And the reason you want to do that, of course, is that they're going to be sieged soon, right? So we're going to leave. We're going to gather up just a few supplies here. I don't think we'll be editing his character too much. It looks like he has... Okay, he is making custom weapons, so that's even better. This guy... And which is probably why he has no money problems, right? If you have no money problems in Bannerlord, the game is basically much, much easier. I was going to say it's over. You still have to win open field battles. You still have to understand diplomacy and stuff like that. But this is going to make it much, much easier. He's got a big, broad assortment of companions, and most of them look like they have excellent... They have excellent banners, excellent equipment, stuff like that. We're going to actually let the Sturgeons siege here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to muster up a large army. You got some asshole over here raiding. We're going to try to handle that guy. One of the biggest benefits to the player in Siege in Bannerlord is that when you siege a city, in other words, when you click attack, it happens instantaneously, right? It happens in a very brief moment. Suddenly the enemy... is just destroyed. When the enemy attacks you, not only is there an extensive siege process here, right, where they basically have to build their siege rams and siege walls and siege towers and stuff like that, but let's see if these guys attack. There's so many Sturgeons here. In fact, I don't want to attack while that guy's there. Early on here, we're going to very much try to minimize losses, although... You know, I forget we're using vanilla. I'm used to strength and AI, where the enemy has just mega monstrously tough forces here. We'll just auto-resolve this. We are going to try to sort of speed through this. I'm not going to take 2 hours to play this. Although, this is a lot of casualties, right? We're not going to be doing that for every battle. There's no way we would have lost 21 guys there. But for the early stage of this, we're going to just kind of cruise along. Okay, he's got a nice list of prisoners here. He's got elite prisoners. So... There's another thing that I'm not entirely certain, but my experience in gameplay and my brain has told me that it's better to have a mix of prisoners, because it seems like you get more individual recruits that way. Instead of having a big pile of your favorite guys, that generally seems to be the way. Now, I have some guys who tell me the opposite, so I guess in a little ways this can be an experiment, right? We will see if that is correct or not. All right, so money is not a problem. In fact... That's going down. I wonder why the tribute payment is less. That's kind of strange. Anyways, we're going to make a loop here, and we're going to recruit as many troops as we can. Now, this village, we just rescued that village from these raiding fucks, right? So they're very eager to give us troops. And I'm basically going to cut a path here. I'm going to try to make a broad loop here, smashing enemies that are raiding our villages. But more importantly, I'm going to try to pick up about 350 troops. And then we're going to try to share them with our companion members here. Now, you can't call your companion armies, right? This is part of our clan here, unless they have an army that is 45% or 40% of the maximum size. So that's another priority, is to get a hold of those armies physically. In other words, we got to go right up to them, at which point we can donate troops to them, and they will be then large enough. We can say, let me inspect your army, and they will then be large enough so that we can add them to our main force. Might makes right in Bannerlord, and that's definitely going to be the case here, right? We need to get over there and bash the Sturgeons. We need to continue to gather up troops here. I thought I had enough tools. I thought I bought enough tools to satisfy that guy. Evidently not. I don't want to make too broad of a loop here, though, looping around, right? Understand what we're doing here is utilizing the fact that it's going to take... It'll be like winter 20 by the time we deal with those Sturgeons at Varcheg, right? We have a little bit of time. Now, there are negative consequences to what we're doing. Let's cover a few of those, right? The first is that we're going to lose troops, right? They're going to pound on our militia. They're going to pound on our garrison once they start the siege. Settlement, Rodobos, okay, this is Ragenvad right there, right? It's very tempting to go up there and smash Ragenvad and say, come with us. We got all kinds of huge armies. The likelihood of war against these other kingdoms is very high, right? There's basically kingdoms marching all over the place to our south. I think it's very likely that during this campaign we're going to have a problem, probably with Khazate, right? They're the closest proximity. They have a huge kingdom. The other thing you can do, right, and this is a nice helpful hint, is you can prognosticate whether or not you're going to have problems with kingdoms by seeing what their status is, right? Here, they're only at war with Britannia. That's bad, right? That means their only war is right now against Britannia. They're likely to go to war with either us, the Northern Empire, maybe the Southern Empire, or Valandia. We really want them to go to war at Valandia. In fact, if this was like a real politic, if we were thinking like Frederick the Great or something like that, we would actually encourage war. We'd be going over to Valandia, telling their diplomats, hey, the Khazate guy over there said he's gonna marry your sister after he executes you, right? We'd be fomenting war within the ranks of our enemies, because the best thing that could happen in this situation would be for our enemies to start chewing into each other and leave us just the sturgeons. Now we're watching the defenders number there, right? It's 430. We're keeping an eye on the food too. In fact, it just went negative. That is because Ragenvad is sieging and stuff like that. In fact, I've kind of missed an opportunity with a few of these villages. When you're in a situation like this, every single one of these buy all their food. Now I probably don't need the hardwood and stuff like that, but we're going to buy every one of these where there's that little grain icon. We're going to buy it all, right? Because we need that food. Also, if they have quests, especially if they're quests that don't require troops, in other words, it's like buy some tools or some shit like that, every time we're going to do that, right? And that's because we need more troops. You get more troops, obviously, the villagers like you. Now, we still probably can't call any nobles to us, although they're starting to build up a force, right? Basically, they go around to the villages and it sort of simulates that their armies are getting larger. Sylvand, I think, is one of his parties. Let's make sure we know these names here. He's got, Sylvand, Fodor, and Serena, the D Ispossessed party. It's all truncated. Again, we're going to handle these raiders here, but we're still collecting troops, right? We don't have a large enough force to deal with this sturgeon force. Now, one thing we can obviously do is break in, right? Now, people are like, well, you lose troops when you break in. That is true. But if we can have a couple, 3 battles here, upgrade some of these Battanian units, right? We have these Battanian archers. In fact, let's go ahead and do it right here. How many do we have? We have like 10 or 12. Yeah, we picked up some highborn youth. We've got some archers that can be upgraded here. I actually want to fight this out. Well, we don't have the RTS mod. Let's just do 1 or 2 here because I think it'll be highly beneficial. The reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to get as many upgrades as possible. We must rebuild this guy's army in a hurry. And this is probably the worst battlefield to do this, although we were going to have to do this eventually anyways. I am going to reconstitute your army and make this, for what is me, familiar, right? If we try to set this up in your manner and I try to play yours, I will probably do very poorly, simply because I'm used to my fingers hitting certain buttons and certain things happening. Basically, with how many hours I've played Bannerlord, it's like a car where I know exactly where the shifter is, and if you make the shifter like a car in England where it's on the other side, I'm going to have problems with that, right? So we've got to set up your units here, especially since we're going to be fighting in the open, extensively during this campaign. We'll also get some of these companions set up. His main character, decreased taken ranged attack damage. Typically, I like that to be on an archer, but for the time being, let's go ahead and just set that up to his cavalry division. It is nice to have that for your cavalry division because they're going to be getting shot at, right? The enemy's going to have archers. We're going to use our cavalry in a manner that is sort of aggressive, dealing with their archers, and that is a nice trait to have here. I'm not being overly precise here, but we need to win these battles. These are not battles we can fuck around and have a huge amount of casualties. We need to not just win, but we need to have exemplary, crushing victory, right? We can't afford 100 losses or 60 losses in any of these. Now, he doesn't really have a skirmisher captain, but that's not too big of a deal. He does have some skirmishers here, and I'll be zooming in and kind of looking at this guy's troop composition as we play here. Of course, we're unfortunately dealing without the RTS mod. That means mostly negative things for you guys. It's negative for me as well because it's harder for me to control things, but ultimately the greatest difficulty for both of us is you can't really see very easily where I'm positioning my units, right? We also have to be aware that we're going to lose our primary guy, lose control of our whole army. So that's something we really want to avoid as well. Now, we don't have a 1st Division commander. Doesn't matter tremendously here. Obviously, it's always a bit of a disadvantage just to throw yourself in and not know anything about the captains. I talk about it a lot. The captains in Bannerlord are essential. You must have good captains for success, right? Now, he has some pretty good banners here, but I think it should be a focus of players early on. Go through, do an audit of your army, and make sure that the right captains have the right banners. And I will talk about that a little bit during this episode. Now, this battle, again, is not an important battle, but I'm doing this setup here because we're going to be using these units over and over in this couple 3 episodes. Now, all we're going to do here is pound the enemy at range, right? We're fighting in this kind of strange village process. I don't think I've ever had a battle like this in this village, because normally you don't fight here. Normally you're outnumbered. Normally I'm outnumbered anyways, and we're charging the enemy. In this instance, the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm being defensive like this and pounding them at range, is I want all of these archers, all these little woodland raiders and stuff like that. Well, that's not a unit, I'm just making shit up now. All these highborn youth, all these different javelin throwers, these sturgeon soldiers and recruits that we just picked up. I want them all scoring kills. And the best way to do that is to make sure the archers get their fill first, right? So we're having all our different archers shoot here. I don't actually need to kill a lot with our main troop here. In fact, optimally, you just kind of hold your shield up and let your archers just work on these guys. At the same time, I don't want to lose 80% of my health here. Right? Just let your archers work, play defensively, and then once they get close, obviously we will charge. We don't need to do expansive flanking or anything too complicated. The basic concept is that we're letting everybody participate. I've mentioned this before in other episodes. Just the same way they do with kids today, where everybody gets a participation trophy. We're doing that here. Every single wood runner and low-level guy here is roaring up into battle, and we're making sure that everybody gets their licks, right? Now, there'll be a few deaths, right? We're charging with some weak troops here. The enemy does have a competent army. There's a death. Maybe there'll be a couple more here, but I think we're going to get 10, 20, maybe 30 upgrades here, and that's the most important thing, right? We want to upgrade this army so that this blood-stained sturgeon army gets better. Now, I'm rapidly pushing the button. That speeds up the battle. That comes with the RTS mod, and of course, it doesn't work. I may do some editing afterwards to sort of help with this process here, and we can also do this just to sort of give you guys a view. This is beautiful. We didn't lose a single troop to death, and 45 upgrades, right? That's huge. That means all of these scrubby woodsmen and highborn youth and soldiers, these guys are all upgrading. Again, identifying the strengths that we have in this campaign. The biggest one we have is money. This guy was smart, had 800,000 gold. He probably had more when he went independent in the first time, in the first case. That's going to serve us tremendously well here, right? Because what that means is there's no breaks, no reason to restrain ourselves when it comes to recruiting troops, recruiting mercenaries, etc. Right? We're going to push that to the max, right? We're going to build as strong a possible army as we can in as quick a possible time. Time is of the essence here because we're facing war potentially from these other kingdoms. It is likely. All right, a huge heap of upgrades here. That's beautiful. We'll talk a little bit during this process about which troops I prefer to upgrade. I did send him an email actually before I started playing, and I basically said, hey, do you want to skew towards sturgeon units or Batanian units, right? Do you want to have more sort of culturally correct units, or do you not give a shit, right? Basically, some guys, you know, they want it to be sort of strict, where they have a lot of Khazate units in their campaign playthrough. Now, ironically, this is not a perfect situation because the sturgeons still aren't attacking. I want them to attack, right? And the reason I want them to attack, of course, is because then we can sneak in and smash them to pieces. I will try to skip redundancy for this series. They should be attacking soon. They've got 2 siege towers. Our side is building catapults, which is going to make it very easy for us just to smash them to pieces once they do siege. But I actually want them to siege. That way we can enter so we can destroy this force. We must destroy this force. We can't just wander off and start sieging Revel, for example, until this city is under siege, right? So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to run over here and try to get a hold of one of these companion armies. As soon as I can reach one of these guys, now you can't, again, you can't call them to you, right? When I go here, none of these guys can be called to you because their armies are smaller than 40%. You want to avoid that. Meanwhile, they are going to start sieging here, right? We don't mind if it takes a little bit of time here, although, of course, this guy's running as far away as he can from us. just at the right moment where we want him to come towards us. He's running. This guy's running. You want to definitely rescue these guys here, right? I'm going to try to go to this village and then run down here and chase this guy who's endlessly running away from us. But this is definitely an important thing for players to understand, that when you have, let's buy some food. When you have companion armies out there, you want to keep them with you, right? You want to give them a few troops, enough troops so that they stay above that 50% limit, because what that'll do is it'll enlarge in your army, and early in a campaign like this, might makes right? They're getting chased around, they're getting captured. In fact, it just happened, right? He got captured. Your other army is running here. This is a major disadvantage, the fact that we can't get a hold of these other armies. Now, ironically, it's almost like they're conspiring here to run away from me. I want these guys, get over here, and look at, he's going again, he's going the other way. So maybe he'll just run all the way down to asteroid territory. These are the kind of things you just deal with in a campaign, right? You're going to get obstinate units. I think we're down to 2 parties, right? One of our parties got captured. The good news is we can make another party. The bad news is however many troops they had, they're gone, right? Those troops are captured. Now, of course, I mean, where are you going, dude? You're going the exact opposite way everywhere I go. Rather frustrating. Still, our city's not under siege here. We have lost, what, 40,000? They're endlessly sieging. The negative there is that eventually that garrison is going to be starved, right? We may have a problem with that garrison being reduced to the point where it's no longer able to fight. It just kind of is what it is. At this stage, I can't do anything with this situation because there's 900 sturgeons. We can't attack them in the open. That should be a given. The food stocks are barely holding out. There, you can picture them gathering all the rice and all the grain in the whole city. Look at this fucking guy. Where are you going to run to, dude? You're going to run all the way to the other side of the map? We can finally trap this guy. And this is basically, it is like a critical thing, right? This guy is effectively running away from us, really harming our early stage here. We've got to catch this guy eventually. Now, that literally looked like he was running away from us. Like he ran into the city and ran away from us. Get over here. Now, I would like to fucking inspect your troops. Once we get them to 40% of their army, and I'm typically going to give them lower level troops, then we can call them to us at our leisure, and more accurately, we can say, join our fucking army, quit running away from us, you dipshit. No, I don't think we can do it in the town. All right, we can also call this other guy to us. Now, we're all the way down here at Epicrotia. Might as well take advantage of it, right? Every single one of these, we're going to be ransoming prisoners. We're going to be recruiting any troops that are possible. And more importantly, we're going to empty all of these cities that are not ours of all their food, right? Give us all your food. I don't care that it's going to encumber us here until our money starts to get to a critical stage, and we're a long ways from that. You just buy it all, right? Buy all of their sheeps, buy all of their food. Not only does that harm our enemies, but obviously it helps our own side, right? Because suddenly we're going to have even more food to take back to our city. I mentioned it a lot to players on the channel. You really, really want to focus on having a food store in your city, right? Your main city at all times should have a food stash. And what I mean by that is your capital, whatever you choose to be your capital. In this case, we're obviously choosing our only city to be our capital. As soon as we can, we're going to start piling up food here at Varcheg. Now, I can only speed the game up so much, right? Because not only are we encumbered here, we're moving at 1.0, but we don't have the better time mod going on. Now, the reason I'm habitually checking to make sure there's nothing going on at Varcheg, in other words, they're not sieging it down, is that that's going to be our trigger for racing back there, right? We need to get there as soon as we can, once it starts to be sieged. In the meanwhile, we're really very much in a state of just wait. Right? They continue to try to siege. Now, the AI is too stupid to siege down the walls and destroy, make a hole, and make their job much easier. Instead, they're just going to waste our time here by endlessly sieging. At some point or other, we may fight them in the open. I noticed it was mostly infantry. If they siege, say, for example, another week, which would be unlikely because they'll run out of food or they'll run out of organization, right? They will break apart with a disorganized state. We may attack them in the open. The area around Varcheg has some great spots for tactical opportunities, and our army is starting to get sizable, right? 303, we've called both of these armies to us, and now we can collect virtually unlimited troops here. Again, you see me focusing every time that I can go to these Botanian villages and get fiends, we're going to do so, right? These are by far the most powerful unit in the game. That's not fair. Them and the cons guards are by far the most powerful units in the game. Now I'm watching this guy. He's close to getting to the point where we can add him to the army as well. These guys are not. But the bottom line is we need an army of 400, 500, 600 at this stage. They're raiding our villages. Villages are smoking over here. And they're still not engaging here, right? As soon as they engage, we can activate here, but we're very much in a waiting game at this stage, right? If we were inside the city, they might keep waiting this whole time. The reason you want to be outside here is at least we've been able to gather up troops, right? While we wait endlessly for them to siege. If you were inside the city, you're totally fucked. You're held in there, and if you wanted to break out, it would be costly, right? You would lose troops. Now, when we break in, we're going to lose 10 to 20% of the troops in our army. That's just a feature of the game, right? It's going to happen, and you just basically get over it, right? It's going to be a thing. Now, let's get this guy his tools over here. A lot of guys would say don't give them their nobles, right? We could definitely do that. Now, he's offering us peace. I don't think we're going to take this. They want money, but more importantly, that would kind of make this playthrough a little boring, right? Then what are we going to do, right? We're going to endlessly wait because we finally have peace with the Sturgeons. All right, so here's our opportunity here. We're going to have to wait until morning. I wish this guy would join us. There's a couple different ways you can do this. One of the things we can do is fight out in the open, and we will take a look at that to see if it's appealing. The other thing, of course, we can do is we can sneak in the city. If we sneak in the city, it's a certainty we're going to be able to defend, like 100% of the time. Not only that, it'll be enormously effective, right? They will be obliterated. In fact, if we have any fire catapults here, it will be a complete thrashing. They may even run before they get up to our ramparts. So you would lose those initial 10 or 15% of your troops, so we would lose 40 or 50 troops breaking in, and then we might lose 50 in the rest of the siege. If we fight in the open here, we'll probably lose 200. We'll probably lose a bunch of troops, right? And we'll have to see if we can even fight in the open here. We need the garrison to help us. The other thing that's happening here, besides our city starving, is that the enemy's being worn down by this assault. A lot of players would just sit here. In fact, let's just go ahead and sit and watch. You see 307 defenders, 600 attackers, 290 defenders. This city is almost going to hold out on its own, and it's going to allow us to attack. In fact, what we'll do here is just like the Rohirrim, we will attack at dawn. The reason we'll do that is just to show some open field battle for this campaign. This Sturgeon force, I think it's infantry heavy. It is, so it's going to be classic kill box time, right? The fans of the channel know what we're going to do here. It's a good map for it, and as soon as that happens, we're going to try to gather up a force here and start beating the shit out of the Sturgeons. Obviously, we've got to handle some issues at the city. We've got to try to get food there. We've got to try to make sure that they have at least some kind of garrison before we head north. But once this Sturgeon force is defeated, it's just like a boxing match, right? The enemy's swinging away and attacking us right now. We're blocking, we're defending. Once we defend long enough and we feel like we have a surge of energy and we're ready to attack, we're going to counterattack, and we're going to do it as viciously as we can. All right, last few upgrades here. We are going to fight this in the open. Let's go ahead and explore our options here. Break in to help the defenders. 42 troops, right? Now, we would completely obliterate them. In fact, we could just auto-resolve this, and we would, I don't know, maybe we would lose 50 or 100 troops, but let's go ahead and fight this in the open. Let's see if we can't, in an exemplary manner here, just shatter this foe with an open field battle. Of course, player damage normal, and we will assault the siege camp. Now, you can see the power bar actually favors us here. Well, it's going to be a lot worse than that because the enemy has mostly infantry. Classic kill box time. Now, let's sit up in my chair here. We don't do a lot of kill boxes on the channel anymore for battles like this without the RTS mod, right? Because a lot of guys can't see what's going on. You guys are just going to have to deal with that fact in this battle. You're not going to be able to see everything with the overhead view. I'm aware of some guys that's painfully difficult to understand. We'll do the best we can here, though, to basically give you guys, the walkthrough playthrough of what we're doing here. All right, we'll put him in charge of a cavalry division. I think that she's on a horse. Most of your nobles tend to be mounted, right? We want some mounted captains. Increased charge damage. We can put that guy in charge of one of the cav divisions, but this shit doesn't matter, right? We're about to completely blast the enemy with the ranged units. Now, we're going to make a mixed division with the 6th division. Hopefully, there's some good skirmishers in there. In fact, I'll zoom in here first to look. There's a handful, not too many. The Sturgeons, if there's one thing I would say that they could really fix, is give the Sturgeons more javelin units, right? Most of their javelin units are actually cavalry, right? Those cavalry brigands, whatever they're called, mounted brigands. It would be nice if the Sturgeons had a lot more mounted units in Bannerlord, right? The Sturgeons really are, to me, the weakest kingdom in Bannerlord because they don't have an exemplary unit. None of their units are like, oh shit, this is a great unit, right? The Botanians have one. The Valandians have sharpshooters, shit like that. And the Sturgeons seem like they just have kind of a pile of shit, bunch of units that look tough, but really don't offer a lot of substance. All right, so I have actually so many units here. I don't need so many. Once I just get into a rhythm here, this will be sort of par for the course, so to speak. We'll reduce these a little bit here. Now, we're going to slowly move uphill here and surround this force. They have 334 infantry and very few archers, right? So I like to put the 2nd Cavalry on this wing over here on the left, or on the right, rather. I need more caffeine, I think, here. We'll get some caffeine between episodes here. And we're going to start to move uphill with the rest of our troops. The cavalry on this side, all I want them doing is basically holding that ridge up there. I can sort of show you what's going on. It helps that there's snow. You know, you can see the little green icons a little bit better. If this was springtime, you wouldn't be able to see that shit because, of course, there'd be grass everywhere. Now, he doesn't have a lot of movement banners, right? So we need to make sure that we're kiting aggressively with his units here, right? Kiting, pre-kiting especially. For those who are watching this, maybe this is one of their first big battles they've seen where someone is using tactics. Kiting means basically this. The enemy's trying to come towards us with a huge amount of infantry, and they have skirmishers right there. They also have Sturgeon units. They're throwing axes. What we want to do here is basically keep our units away from their infantry, right? They're moving in here like a bunch of dipshits. They're holding up their shields, and we don't really want these guys throwing axes at our units. We don't want them pounding us with arrows. So we're just going to simply move back before they get to our units. See that shit? All these throwing axes coming in here? Let's pull these guys back. Now that is partially intentional. I want that cav division drawing attention. You're doing that because they're more armored. They have more shields than most of your troops. The rest of our troops here, we're simply moving back as the enemy comes in. And guys, a lot of times they're sort of incredulous, like, oh, you can't do that without the RTS mod. Obviously, you can. It just takes a lot of coordination. Obviously, my experience level makes this a cakewalk. There's still mistakes you can make, right? They are firing javelins away at our guys. Our guys are backpedaling here furiously. Now, this is the 1st Infantry and the 4th Division of Archers. I want actually these archers to be up on the ridge. And this 1st Infantry, I just want them the fuck out of the way for now. All these recruits, a lot of these guys are militia and stuff like that. They have no armor, none. So I don't want them getting hit with javelins. They're going to get killed. We don't need to suffer 100 casualties here, 150 casualties. Now, a couple things are happening here that are very beneficial for us. First, the enemy archers are miles away. See how far away they are. Second, we now have troops over here that are behind the enemy. Right, this is your 4th Division. It's now physically behind the enemy. In fact, we can move them up even more aggressively to get behind the enemy. Uh-oh, whoops. I pushed the wrong button there. The 6th is here. And the 5th is almost caught, right? Okay, no attacking. Get back, boys. Nope. See, if it says kill them all, what's happening is you're getting a UI error where basically the AI is like, oh, you want me to attack those guys? That's definitely not what I want to do here. Right, what I'm trying to do is have those guys back up. And they're moving slowly. This guy doesn't have a whole lot of banners that help his units. We now have the enemy surrounded. Right? In fact, this 4th Division, it's a little bit messy. I probably have too many units in the 6th and not enough in the 4th. We don't have enough archers for this strategy to be fully effective, right? If you don't have a lot of archers here, obviously you're not shooting the enemy, right? And so they're just sort of running around while your troops run around. It looks like an elaborate ballet for no reason. In fact, somehow I got the 4th switched. The 4th and the 6th Division. I need more caffeine today. That's evident. All right, so the 6th is right here. We're just backing these guys up. The 4th Division, those are archers. Those guys are now behind the enemy, right? You see them getting up to that ridge. You're doing that so that the enemy archers can't touch those guys, right? The enemy archers are way over there. We've got, I should have mentioned this, I think I was trying to. Our cavalry's just holding a shield wall there. All they're doing there is basically limiting how much the enemy archers attack us. Now, eventually, we're going to collapse on the enemy. And again, just like that previous battle where we mentioned the participation award, right, we want all our various infantry and whatnot to get some licks in on this Sturgeon force. But not yet. That's a lot of guys, right? There's like 150, 200 guys here. They got comms guards attacking us. We want to soften them up. Before we get to actual combat with these boys here, we want them to basically be a lot stronger. Right? The enemy to be a lot weaker here. Again, the ranged attack damage continues. You got this little fuck here with the flag. He can eat shit. Look how far away the archers are, right? And I call this position for the enemy the fishball. The enemy is completely surrounded here, and they don't know what to do. The AI doesn't know what to do. A lot of players wouldn't know what to do. The only solution to this is separating your units, but the AI just doesn't do that. It's just not capable of doing that, right? So we're going to continue to weaken them here. If I had the RTS mod, right here is where I would be fast forwarding this, right? A lot of our units are out of ammo. This is going to take another 30 seconds or so of archers just pounding them. If you have the dexterity, you want to get them a little closer. That way those guys are shooting like point blank into the enemy here. Let's see if we can get a count. Still 300 infantry, right? We're not rushing in. Guys are working. And don't forget, guys are getting experience out of this, right? Your archers are gaining all kinds of experience here. If it feels like I'm being extra methodical here, this is the first big battle. And Daniel cannot afford to have 200 casualties here. Now, it says 300 infantry, 297 and going down, but the important thing to remember is these guys are badly wounded, right? These guys, a lot of these guys have 20% of their health. Every single unit in Bannerlord basically has a health bar, even if you can't see it. A lot of these guys have taken arrows in the back. They have been beaten up a bit. Now, this... Cavalry! I can't actually tell who these guys are. This is where the RTS mod is hurting us. I think these are enemy forces coming in. These are enemy reinforcements coming in. In fact, I got to do this, right? At least. Otherwise, you can't tell what's going on. We turn up basically the friendly fire thing. The friendly, who are friendlies and who's not friendly. These guys coming in here, these are actually Sturgeon units. In fact, these are archers moving up here, trying to basically join their ranks. So incredibly, all of their forces are sort of now in the middle, inside this fishball. Now we can move in for the kill here, right? The archers are becoming a problem because they're going to be shooting with these Sturgeons. So everybody gets moved closer at the same time. I will drag the cavalry as well because we want every single sword and shield here all attacking at the same time. And now it's a charge. 4th Division, 5th Division. And you could definitely, in fact, we'll just do it. This is an F1, F3 situation. Every single guy attacks. I'd probably get 20, 30, 40 losses here because we do have some weak troops. We have militia, but the enemy is utterly surrounded. They're in a beatdown, surrounded on every side. And even though they're forming lines, like they're going to suffer grim losses here. Get on the foot here. Again, participation award. Troops are leveling up left and right, and the enemy just disappears. It looks like basically a jelly donut with the enemy inside it. And there's no hope for survival. There's no hope for success. The only thing they can hope to do is inflict some casualties on us. Again, here without the RTS mod, we're sort of forced to cut these guys down to the last troop. I'm helping here because I don't want us to suffer a bunch of losses. And we're approaching 80 losses, right? 50, 78. We probably would have suffered more than that had we defended the city and broken into the city, right? Had we done both, we'd probably suffer more. I think also this is enormously beneficial. 147 upgrades, right? Tremendously helpful. And then I'm sure if you look at our army, probably 20 losses. Exactly 20 losses, right? And then a heap of upgrades. So companions are upgrading. This one is really good, right? Your highborn warriors and youths, these are your archers. We want 80 to 100% of these guys upgrading every battle. Because very quickly here, we're going to have a doom stack of Fiend Champs. Now, Fiend Champs are so powerful that a lot of guys, a lot of experienced players just elect to not play with them. But I'm not going to do that here, right? This guy's in a bad situation. We are going to take every single possible advantage we can muster in this campaign. We'll try to pick up some elite units here, some elite prisoners. 80 upgrades to this army as it rapidly gets stronger. We'll do a nice mix. A lot of guys want to know, you know, what are my choices? There are certain units where I prefer a certain unit here. Generally, I would prefer range over infantry, although the Brigand does have a javelin, right? You're getting javelin units. I'm going to select archers most of the time, but when it's a choice like this, shock troop or regular shield infantry, I just like a mix. Both are very valuable. Guys are like, what's the best infantry? There isn't really, right? Legionnaires are great, but Manavelitons are too, right? They're basically, the units augment each other supremely well in Bannerlord. A huge list of nice equipment here. Not too worried about this guy's equipment. He seems like he's pretty well set up. To skip an overly loud song for you, we will occasionally do that just to save you guys from a deafeningly roaring soundtrack. All right, so Sturgeon's smashed. Pile of prisoners, right? Since we have this much money, the thing that makes the most sense as we get, we're getting some, that's a good sign, right? We're getting all the achievements, is we're going to just dump these guys into the dungeon, right? Let's dump these Sturgeon prisoners into the dungeon. Now, the other reason to do this is that eventually we may get peace with the Sturgeons. Why would I give them peace? Well, because frankly, I would love to see them get bashed on by our enemies. Which city are we going to leave them? The one that's out there in the maelstrom. The way to think of this is that there's carnage in your house. Let's say there's a shooting in your house. A bunch of your friends come loaded to a party. They start drinking, fist fights happening. And you have a safe room in your house, right? You have a room that's bulletproof with a bunch of food and Netflix or something like that, right? You're going to go take your food in there, your Netflix, you're going to close the door and hide in your house. That's what this peninsula is, right? This is a really good way to have 3 assets, Varcheg, Revel, and Ustakol Castle, and let the enemy fight it out here while you get stronger. It's very similar to what the English basically did for 300 years, where they said, we've got our little island up here, you bitches on Europe, you guys fight left and right. We will benefit the whole time. We will get stronger. We will sell you guys arms. We will sell you guys food, etc., etc. We will do some real politics with diplomacy. And then once you guys are weak, we will have treaties written up that benefit us. We will broker peace and we will benefit, right? England basically said that they wanted to maintain what they called global balance of power, which basically meant a balance of power as long as it didn't include them, right? They wanted everybody else to get weaker while they got stronger. Now, anybody who's played Risk is familiar with this concept as well. It is a very, very, very simple concept, right? Let your enemies beat on each other while you get stronger. Consolidate your gains. All right, so we just stuffed some food in the stash. In fact, we're going to kind of take a risk here and stuff a few more objects of food. The reason I'm doing this is because, again, I mentioned this before, we very much want to have a capital city that's building up its resources. Now, the rest of the food, I'm going to sell almost to the last kernel of food. And the reason I'm doing that is we need to make sure that when we leave, say the Valandians attack, right? Or for some other reason, there's a food problem here at Varcheg, that the city doesn't starve, right? The city is going to be sieged at some point or other, and that is the way that you improve food in a city. The other thing you can do are these kind of projects, right? The orchards, it's very small. You get plus 18 to food production every day, basically. Let's see, it's on there. It should be on there somewhere. Where's that shit? It should be... I think it's the building bonus plus 12, right? Those kind of factors are important, right? You want to focus on projects that help your city based on whatever the needs are, right? If you're having real trouble with your villages, you can do stuff like this where it increases the village growth. If you're having loyalty issues, you do bread and circuses, right? These here cannot be activated though if you're doing construction. It's either or, right? Now let's take a look at the manager here. He's got a little governor, a guy sitting there. Can't actually see the guy's stats, so let's go ahead and tell him to join. Take him to the party. Now we can leave the city, enter it again, and we will manage our governor here. Obviously, you want a guy with a giant list of perks. Now, it looks like Daniel here had one of the best governors already defending. Nozhan. He's got a nice list here, a bunch of different traits. I don't really look at these super closely unless I badly need militia or something like that. Most of the time, all you're doing here is just simply putting the guy with the biggest list of perks, right? You're the governor. And again, don't worry about these bottom ones if we're doing construction. If we were desperate for militia or something here, I would change it. But right now, I'm okay doing some work there with some of the construction. Now, I'm also going to pull all of the troops out here. Right? Why am I doing that? I'm only doing that so that I can organize our units here. And this is going to take a bit, just a few minutes. We're going to take some of what I consider our better troops for offense, right? We're going to take higher end units. We're also going to take more ranged units. We're definitely going to take all of our Battanian type archers because it's time to march on the Sturgeons. Now, I'm going to leave a garrison here, but I'm going to leave a smallish garrison. In the short term, I don't mind at all if the Sturgeons come siege this, right? Because we can obliterate even more of their forces. If they, how do I put it? If the Sturgeons attack this with an army, it's basically equal or roughly equal to the size of the defense force. It's usually 3 to 5 times the size of the defense force. So let's focus on that for a second. Right now, with the militia, if they're all healthy, assuming they're all healthy, there's about 200 and it looks like 200 and well, it's 250 with that player party here. And let's get her in the army. Let's see, she is in here. Which one is she? Is this gal? Let me inspect your troops. Just like that previous companion, what we're going to do is go down here to our weakest troops here. Again, I keep recommending the weakest troops because you never know what they're going to do with them. They might dump them in a garrison. They might just do stuff with them that you wouldn't do with your own troops, right? Your companions are going to be unreliable from that aspect. It's worse when you're a vassal because they will dump all of your hard-earned troops right into the garrison. And you just lose them forever, right? In this case, all we're trying to do here is get her units up to, we need about 55, right? 55, 60, at which point then we can call her to the army, right? We can't call her now, but now we can, right? In fact, it said right there, I would like you to join my army, right? And what this does, most importantly, is it gives us another noble for the fight, but way more importantly, it gives us the capacity now to add troops to our army, right? Her joining the army makes our army stronger. It weakens the defense of Varcheg a little bit, but it gives us more troop capacity here. Say we rescue a bunch of prisoners, 300 prisoners, well, we will load out all of these units with those prisoners. Now, I'm so greedy for Battanian units, I am tempted to run down there, but we've got Revel up here. Actually, let's go ahead and do it. The city's got some food. We know it because we just put it in there. We've got a couple of smoking villages here. There's no quests, right? Oh, that dipshit still needs tools. I think we can... Damn it. I just lost troops to deserters. Got to pay attention to that shit. We gotta get 12 more ghetto troops here stuffed onto one of these other companions. And we're starting to get a nice mix of archers, right? You guys are going to see me prioritize that generally. I want those archers because that's where we're going to do the greatest amount of tactical good. The bottom line is that tactics in Bannerlord can be performed with infantry and cavalry, but it's much less effective. In other words, they have their uses, but if you have an army that's 80% infantry and cavalry, a good tactical outcome might be, let's see, how do we put this? Might be your army of 500 beating an army of 500 and only losing 150 troops. If you have archers, it can be like that last battle where we fought a force and had 70 casualties, right? Your archers are critical to tactics in Bannerlord. Now, what risk is there in doing this? We're risking that another big, large, same thing, big force of Sturgeons starts to gang up and again, siege on Varcheg, right? Already happened. The other risk that sort of, you don't realize it until it's happened, is getting another kingdom to declare war. Right now, they don't really see us as a threat, right? We have one little tiny city here, and there's Kazate, there's Valandia that are already at peace with us. They might all of a sudden just rip up this peace treaty, right? And just tear it up and throw it in our face and say, we want twice that much money. So there's risk in what we're doing here, right? A lot of people would be in a hurry to basically subdue the Sturgeons before they tried to get more troops like this, but we're going to siege. You guys are probably incredulous. We're going to siege Revel here and basically try to take it to the Sturgeons, right? Now, you have to have the long view in play, right? We're going to, let's see, if I go to Revel, or if I go to Epicrotia, that's going to take too long. Let's cut the shorter path through here. I want to get this dude his tools. I don't think we can make it there, in fact, before his shit's raided, which sucks, although it looks like that guy just left. And let's make ourselves a little missile unit here. This is another nice little tip for players. Let's take, it doesn't really matter which one of these armies. What I'm going to do here is I'm taking all of her troops. In fact, I want all of her prisoners because I don't want her encumbered at all. Now you're just like, wait a minute, you're giving her elite cavalry. You said don't give good troops to your companions. This is the exception. We're going to use her as a heat-seeking missile here to catch the enemy force. Now, I don't have enough cavalry to really do this properly. If you had a whole bunch of low-level cavalry, it would work a lot better. We want her to basically run down this enemy force so that they stop raiding, right? These fuckers are raiding us, and of course, that's a problem, right? They're raiding, they're destroying our villages, they're causing us food issues. We want to make sure that her force is large enough that after the battle, she can still rejoin our army. So we're giving her kind of the minimum here. And what we're going to do right now is now disband her. I'm also going to sort of take an opposite angle here, sort of cutting off the enemy. And then what we're going to do basically is watch her and this army do their thing, right? Right now, she's not doing shit. It'll say engaging so-and-so. It does say running from her. Now notice she's disorganized for 2 hours. Generally, not always, generally, they will then aggro that unit and help you out. Although in this case, it looks like she's being disobedient. She's like running off. At some point or other, she should aggro that unit. It might have to do with the fact that she doesn't have great scouting range, right? She might not be able to see very far. Oh, that's a different village, different tools. I thought that was our tool fella. If she's got poor scouting skill, she can't see this guy, right? Even though he's right there. Here's the other. Okay. She just did it right now. Let's see her speed. 5.6. 4.8, right? This guy's a dead man, right? Because even if she can't destroy him, we can, right? That's all we want. We wanted her to engage. Now we come in here and we clean up, right? She likes this. Of course, we're going to get a little bit of relation. But the main reason we're doing that is to get rid of these raiding fucks, right? There's benefits, of course. We get some more prisoners. We get a few more upgrades. In fact, we're going to start developing a little bit of more cavalry. That way we can start creating this attack division. These attack divisions, it's kind of a gimmicky thing. I don't know if the developers intended it to work like this, but it works pretty well, right? We basically have turned her into basically a heat-seeking missile. Like with the big aircraft carrier, you have planes that can take off from it and then attack somebody at range. That's exactly what we're doing here with her. And we picked up a few more cavalry. The more cavalry, the better, of course, because cavalry increases your party speed, right? So we don't have enough to really do it. Like if we had 30 equite, I would stick them all on her, right? In the near term, we will simply give her some of these ghetto units. It doesn't really matter as long as she can chase down the enemy. Now we're taking her prisoners as well. And I'm doing that because I don't want her dragged down by those prisoners. Her job is to attack, not to be gathering up prisoners. All right, let's see here. Let's give a few more troops away here. You can see I'm hoarding these infantry. I'm not giving these infantry away, right? If we get in a situation where we let these other nobles go, we want this infantry, right? We don't want them running around with we want our archers, right? We don't want our nobles running around with all kinds of infantry doing archers doing all kinds of dipshit stuff. Your nobles cannot be relied upon on their own. That's the bottom line. There are mods that fix that, but of course this guy's not using mods, right? So we're not going to be taking advantage of that. Basically, we're dealing with the very worst parts of the AI here. I know that's like the number one complaint by most people with Bannerlord is the AI, right? Whether it's the combat AI or in this case, yeah, you're not getting away, Ragenvad. I think we'll just execute Ragenvad for you, Daniel. What do you think about that, right? Let's just kill this guy here. Oops. She's going to engage. That's fine. It doesn't really matter. And if the power bar is close here, we will fight. In this case, we're just going to auto-resolve. We're going to suffer way more casualties here than we would in real life, but it doesn't matter, right? We're trying to speed it up. More prisoners come with us. Now we have the Grand Prince as part of our prison train. You can start to get the image of the Sturgeons being not just interested in peace, but they're getting uppercut at the back of the ring here, right? They're losing commanders left and right. Now, we've been lucky that there's been no war, right? If we had war at this stage with other kingdoms, we'd have to pay more money. Our money situation is going down, but we've also acquired a huge heap of money, or a huge heap of equipment doing all this ass whipping. And I remain of the opinion that gathering up money is by far the best way, or gathering up, let me rephrase. Man, I need some coffee. In fact, here we go. I remain of the belief that not only is it the most fun way to succeed in Bannerlord, but the best way to really dominate at Bannerlord is to get good at tactics, is to get good at battle, because you get everything when you when you play Bannerlord from that perspective, right? The guys who are out there smithing, that's fine. You can do fine. You can make some money, but you only get money, right? Or you get a slight upgrade to your equipment. When you play Bannerlord with a tactical perspective, in other words, you're going into battle and defeating armies that are larger than you, defeating armies that conceivably you would not be able to defeat without tactics, you're gaining a huge amount of everything. You're gaining all kinds of equipment, you're gaining all kinds of gold, you're getting all kinds of influence, you're getting all kinds of money if you're a vassal. Now, I haven't looked at his warehouses here. I don't think we'll bother too much. He's got some warehouses. In fact, he's got a nice olive press. He has an olive press at Askar. That's like thousands of miles away. But that's nice, right? It's making us some money here. Now, again, she's disorganized. We're trying to eliminate Sturgeon forces here. You see it says following Fafin party. There's another Sturgeon force coming our way. So before we siege and try to destroy one of the next Sturgeon locations here, we're going to capture. In fact, this guy's completely fucked. He's caught between us and the Khazate. I'm going to leave him, right? There's no, well, except she'll aggro him probably. Yeah, we'll join. I was going to say, we'll just leave him, right? If our enemies are fighting the Khazate, even better. I didn't realize that the Sturgeons are fighting the Khazate. In fact, that's what this Khazate army is doing here. They're heading up conceivably to take Revel or whatever. Maybe they'll go to Omor. In fact, let's look at the guy and see what he says he's doing here. For some reason, they just, they have like a manifest on there, and it says, such and such force is doing this. They might as well have a sign on them. Could you imagine, Genghis Khan he wanders around the steppe of China, and he's got a banner the whole time. It says, I'm heading to Turkmenistan or whatever. He basically has his whole itinerary written out there for you to see. It's a little bit foobar, but it is what it is, right? The Bannerlord system isn't perfect, but it's a pretty fucking amazing game. All right, so this bitch here is running from us. There's a pretty good chance that Serena, the dispossessed, is going to run down this guy for us, and that's going to be beneficial because it'll be either on to Revel or Stockholm Castle. There's two different things we can do here, of course. And I mean with Revel, we can try to overwhelm it with ranged weapons, and there she goes, right? Away she goes, engaging. She's engaging the smaller of the two forces. In fact, she's kind of getting, she's afraid of the big force. I think we're going to be able to catch them though. In fact, she sees us helping, and so in she goes against the big force. That's huge, right? Because we're going to eliminate this Sturgeon force that was starting to form up here. Again, I'm going to fight this. I recognize this is making the campaign longer. Maybe we'll just do 5 episodes. The beauty of all of these, and this is nice too, it left our formations exactly how we wanted them. The beauty of this for you guys is you can skip, right? If this battle seems like it's going to be a snoozer to you because we outnumber them and we're just trying to limit casualties, which is precisely what we're doing, you have the option just on YouTube of skipping it, right? I am forced to sit here and play. Not only that, but I got to say witty shit to keep you guys entertained, right? So you guys are definitely having your cake and eating it too here. I'm rapidly pushing the button that turns on the RTS mod, and instead all it does is it makes you guys dizzy because it bobs the horse up and down here, right? We do not have the RTS mod for this campaign. Still, I want to fight this battle for the exact same reason that we fought that battle earlier at the village, right? We want to basically maximize our upgrades and minimize our casualties here. So we'll try to do this quickly. I'll do this, I guess what I would say, like on a B- level. We're not going to focus incredibly anal retentive on limiting casualties here. We're going to be able to blast through this unit, but we're also not going to F1, F3. Right? If you F1, F3 here, maybe you lose 40 troops or 50 troops. Here, we're going to lose, probably 20 or something like that. Now again, Sturgeon force, mostly infantry. This is the weakest army in the game if you know how to deal with it. Infantry armies have just no chance, although an all-cavalry army is also really weak. They just have no chance. The hardest army in the game to fight is an army full of archers, right? If you fight a Battanian army that has 60% Fiends, you're going to suffer huge casualties no matter how you face it. It does not matter. Right? And that is because the AI uses archers pretty well. Archers are too accurate. They just gun guys down. It's almost like, and it's even worse in Shokohu, it's almost like they wanted to essentially announce to all the Bannerlord players that archery is now supreme. Agincourt is going to be repeated 300 times in a row. Get over it. I'm not a huge fan. I wish that cavalry were a lot stronger, and this is part of the reason that a lot of people play RBM and whatnot. But it is what it is, right? I don't like components of RBM, and so I typically don't use it. Also, it's really slow. This battle would take 3 times as long, right? We don't want to take that long with every battle. It's already probably putting some of you guys to sleep. In fact, the Sturgeons here are conspiring to make this take extra long by climbing the hill. We're just going to move in here aggressively. Fucking assholes wasting our time. Guys randomly throwing javelins into the dirt. The AI really needs to be improved more than anything. Again, I'm mentioning that like somehow there's a guy from Tail Worlds watching. They're probably not. But the bottom line is that players need to have the feel of facing other players, because so many games these days, they are playing other players, right? When you go play Bannerlord online, you know, the multiplayer, after playing this AI, it really is brutal, because you're facing intelligent people making good decisions, making rational, challenging moves. And if you're used to this, I was going to say horrendous. It's not horrendous. It's just not good. The AI is not acceptable in Bannerlord. Now, we don't need to go up there at all, right? This army will charge us. It's about 200 troops. They will charge us because eventually here they suffer enough casualties, even with their shields up, that they're like, ah, fuck it, ain't working. We're going to have to charge. That's the AI trigger in a situation like this. A lot of guys march all their infantry up there. We don't need to do that. In fact, we'll just move our guys back here in a shield wall. Our cavalry in here, these guys are just sort of absorbing, throwing weapons. I can't speed this up any faster than it's already going. But we can position troops here so that as soon as they do charge, and they're going to charge downhill, in fact, I wonder if I can get behind these fuckers. I think if I can get behind him and just kill a few guys, that'll spur them faster. Don't think I can get up here. This map, I don't play on very much, right? This is a highly unique map. It's up near, you know, Ustakal and stuff like that. And because of its location, right, you're not going to be using this map very often. Now, the landscape here is brutal for movement. Now we should be able to spur them. And down they come, right? Just like clockwork. This is the part that I'm sure players would love to see, right? They would love to see the AI be a lot more dynamic here. It's very predictable. It can be baited into situations where it can't ever win. Down the hill it comes, right into our maelstrom of skirmishers and archers. They're coming right down into the gauntlet. I'm taking sort of the brunt of the damage here, but that's fine, right? Even though I don't want to get dropped, of course, because that'll be a disaster tactically, right? We'll lose control of our units. Oh, this landscape, come on, man. I think this is another complaint, and that's what people say, the game is not finished, right? They need to make the boundaries of the game a little bit more clear. When you're moving in a situation like that, and it looks like your character can move, but then he doesn't move, has the opposite effect of immersion, right? It's basically anti-immersive. Enemies in the middle, maelstrom, different units here, it's an all charge. Again, we lose 8, 10, 12 guys here. The enemies, man, they're in a bad way. You auto-resolve this, and you get less upgrades, you get more casualties. I won't be doing this, especially the second episode of this series. In fact, when we take, I guess if we take, I better say if, in case we fail, although I don't think it's very likely. But once we take Revel, we will start to speed up this campaign here. Again, very few casualties, and look at the upgrades. 43 upgrades. This is the ratio I look for, is a 5-to-1 upgrades to deaths. I'm not worried about injuries, because injuries, those guys, you know, a couple 4 days, a little bit of R&R, they're back in the army. But fatalities, I'm worried about, right? We lose our troops forever. This is an amazing ratio, 20-to-1 in that battle. And that's the reason you're doing all that. Take more bitches prisoner, even more troops. And we're starting to get sort of in a luxurious position here. What I mean by that is it's starting to sort of rain benefits, and clearly the gauge of war has swung dramatically in our favor. Right, when we picked up this campaign about an hour ago, the enemy was boring in on our only citadel. The Daniel had an army of kind of mixed troops, but really sort of lacking high-end elite troops. This is a nice little piece of armor here. Some good equipment, right? We're racking up some stuff. I didn't look. Maybe he's got some nice roguery skill. But we've definitely turned the gauge of war around. Now, there's a couple things going on here that make me think that Ustakal is the best opportunity to attack. The first is that it's going to take us a very long time to siege Revel under these conditions. You see the garrison size, the food stocks. There's a huge amount of food at Revel. And since we're going to be taking over Revel, I don't really want to rip down all the villages and destroy their food capacity. This is great. The Khazate just sieged Omor, right? So the Sturgeons really they're getting tag teamed at this point. It's basically what we were afraid of happening before. The Sturgeons being at war with us already, and then at the same time, the Khazate deciding to attack us. Now, this is an automatic thing here. I need troops, right? I've got these other armies here with 38 troops, in fact. Let's shove some troops on this guy. And we're about to get a whole bunch of free troops, right? We're at this village, and basically, you know, give us your troop, bitches, right? You can just tell the poor villagers to give you troops. Now, we want to continue to fill up our vassal armies here. We've already recruited troops, but now we go here and say, give us your fucking troops. Now, they're dumb enough to attack us here. If I was taking forever to really play this game, we would just farm these villages and rack up a bunch of upgrades. We still got a bunch of upgrades here and no death. I'll take it. I don't care about that at all. It is, you know, nice upgrades, though. We'll add the upgrades to the list of benefits in this first episode, take some equipment, and then they give us 15 to 25 guys, right? So we'll take all of those recruits, continue to dump troops on our other companions here, continue to flesh out our different armies. Again, I wish I had more cavalry. The Sturgeons and Battanians don't have low-level cavalry, and that does making those little attack dog divisions harder. Now, I like this just from a role-playing level. After we sack their village and kill all their troops, now we tell them, all right, I tell you what, we'll make it up to you. We will go ahead and buy your goods from you at full price. Now, I think we're actually going to wrap up this episode right here, or at least more accurately, I'm going to pause between these two episodes right here. I don't know if Daniel wants me to play a huge amount of this campaign, so what I'm actually going to do is make multiple save points in this campaign. In fact, we'll just start a save game here. Also, I got to pee. But this episode is pretty complete, right? A thorough ass whipping to the Sturgeons. We've now backed them into a corner. They're being hammered at Omor. We're about to attack. I think we'll go for Ustakel Castle. I'll have to look at it a little bit closer, but we've definitely uppercutted them, and now they're the ones at the back of the ring. All right, so this series is going to continue. Of course, we're going to have another episode probably tomorrow for this series. I try to put these episodes one after another. Daniel, of course, you'll see where this first episode ends off. I'll try to get these episodes to you right away before they're posted on YouTube, and then we will continue this probably 3-episode campaign recovery here. So, of course, if you want to send in your disasters of war situations, send them to the email listed in the video description. Please subscribe if you want to see more from our series. Hit that like button on the way out, and I will see you friends next time.